On an encouraging note, and 17 persons are fully recovered and have been discharged after testing 2 consecutive negatives. 66 others are waiting for a second negative test to be declared fully recovered and subsequently discharged. Several others are undergoing treatment at various quarantine centers across the country. Here's Director General of the Ghana Health Service, Dr. Patrick Abwaje.
The Minister has given a short overview of where we are. But in Ghana, as of Saturday, April the 11th, because we are compiling the rest, we have done a total of 37,954 cases have been tested, out of which 566 are confirmed for COVID-19. The 37,954 include the enhanced surveillance as well as the routine ones that we are doing. Of the 556, about 58% are male and usually youthful. Female are 42%. This testing and results account for about a per capita testing of about 1,265 per 1 million population. That's if we use our estimated 30 million population. And this is the highest in Africa, followed by South Africa, who has about 1,161 per million population. And we, in terms of testing capacity per capita, we are the 14th in the world. Currently, we have about 44,421 samples. We have taken samples, and which means that the last 7,000 are being tested, and I know currently some are still running. And if we to complete that, we would have had a test capacity per capita of 1,480 per 1 million population, which is quite, so it's no wonder we are the number we are having. Aggressive tracing, tracking, testing and treatment has been the approach adopted to contain the virus and be ahead of the virus. Yes. Of the 566, we have 7 in Upper West region. Currently, we have about 10 regions that have recorded cases out of the 16 regions. 10 in Upper West, 4 in Upper East, 1 in Northeast. We have 10 in Northern region that has remained so for a while now. We have 49 in Ashanti, 32 in Eastern region, 9 in Volta region, 1 in Western, and 1 in Central region. The Greater Accra recording 452 cases. Now, how has we done as far as the case management is concerned? Currently, we have a definition of recovered as those who are positive and has recorded 2 consecutive negatives. And that's what becomes that you can claim that you are cured. Currently, we have 83 people in that category who have, a significant number have tested the first negative, but we have about 17 who have recorded double negatives that are obviously clinically cured, and that's quite good. We also have about, out of this number, we have about 208 who are well asymptomatic or in a mild condition and being treated at home in isolation centers. Currently, we have only 2 critically ill people in the hospital with 10 beds. So like I said, we have about 17 who have tested double negative, and so they are completely cured. We will monitor them, obviously. We have 66 of them who have tested the first negative, and we are waiting for the second test. The chances are that they will all be negative again. We have treatment centers in all regions. Ashanti has Konfanochi, Kumasi South, Obuasi, Bekwai has cases. In Accra, we have Ghana East, 37, Rage, Tema, UGMC, Nyaho Clinic is now treating, and Kolebu Teaching Hospital. The last time I gave you a number of admissions across the treatment center across the country. I'll give you the numbers that are currently being, that is on admission. I think I'm moving faster than the screen. Okay, good. Okay. Now, so if you look at Ghana East, as such, 13 has 53 people on admission. Tema has 5 on admission. The UGMC has 23. The military hospital has 2. Ridge Hospital has 4. Konfanochi now has 2 people on admission. Kumasi South has 6. Kolebu now with giving cases, they have 2. Lokwai has 2. Obuasi has 2. Volta region has 7 on admission. Eastern region has 32 in Bagro and Atua. And then we have Wa regional hospital with 7, and Bolga has 3 on admission. So that's just to share with you that the broad category of status that we have. In the next slide is just, we can see that just the number of tests that has been done over during the enhanced periods in cumulative numbers that we have done. Currently, we have expanded, the next slide, we have expanded our, so if you go back to the last slide, you can see that we have cumulatively now about 48,000 samples have been delivered for the testing. Our current testing sites has been expanded in Noguchi, in Accra, KCCR in Kumasi. In the last few days, we have brought on the National Public Health Reference Laboratory in Kolebu. They are also doing so. The Veterinary Service Division in Accra and Pong Tamale have also joined in testing, and so CSR2 is testing. So we are slowly expanding our capacity to test, because that's extremely important, because the essence of treat, test, and manage is to identify and isolate all positives from the community to prevent further spread.
Now, the Ghana Police Service says it has so far effected 406 arrests for non-compliance with the restrictions imposed on movement and on social gatherings. 103 of these persons are in custody, 248 granted bail, with 41 persons processed for court. The Greater Accra region has so far recorded the highest number of violations, with 161 persons arrested. This is followed closely by Ashanti region with 70 cases. ACP Lydia Donko is head of prosecutions for Accra region.
You see on the road on a daily basis have snap checkpoints, roadblocks, checking movements of people from place to place. They are enforcing the law and also engaging in some form of public education. So we have people in trotros, in buses. When they get to the checkpoints, the police officers on the road engage them and advise them on the need to stay safe and also remember all the protocols that are ensured to protect themselves from this deadly virus. However, there are definitely a good number of people who are recalcitrant. People are leaving their homes. People are still having parties. People are going to the beaches. People are having weddings, which are clearly in violation of what the Imposition of Restrictions Act says. So for these recalcitrant people who are failing to comply, the message is that you are going to be dealt with in accordance with the Imposition of Restrictions Act 1012. Such persons have been arrested, and after successful investigations, they are being prosecuted. The breakdown is as follows. So far around the country, 406 persons have been arrested. The message is that you are going to be dealt with in accordance with the Imposition of Restrictions Act 1012. Such persons have been arrested. After successful investigations, they are being prosecuted. The breakdown is as follows. So far around the country, 406 persons have been arrested. 103 are in custody. 248 have been granted bail, and 41 have been processed for court. I'm going to give the breakdown per region. So in the Greater Accra region, we have a total number of 161 cases. In the Ashanti region, we have 70 cases. In the Volta region, 67 cases. In the Western region, 8 cases. In the Eastern region, we have 6 cases. In the region, we have 31 cases. In the Bono region, we have 20 cases. In the Northern region, we have 9 cases. In the Central region, we have 24 cases. In Oti region, no cases reported. In the Ahafo region, no cases. In the Savannah, no cases. In the Northeast region, we have 1 case. In the Upper East region, we have 8 cases. Upper East region, 2 cases. And the Western North region, 8 cases. And lastly, in the Bono East region, no cases. The Ghana Police Service wishes to advise the general public once again to comply with all the rules and regulations governing the Imposition of Restrictions Act. All my colleagues, head of legal and prosecutions in all the other regions, have been charged to ensure that they enforce Section 6 of the Imposition of Restrictions Act 2020 Act 1012. And I'll state here, compelling you to go back home, ensure that you do not engage in any resistance with the officers. If you do that, you are going to be arrested, and definitely you will spend time in our custody and you will not be free to go home. So stay at home, stop the spread, and let's stay safe. Thank you.
Now, Dr. Amma Edwin, who is a psychologist, also spoke to us about stigmatization of patients.
When we talk about stigma, we're talking about a group of people or an individual who is treated differently based on something we perceive as being other, something we don't want to be in touch with or associated with. And in this case, we're talking about COVID-19. So what is happening now is that we have patients who have been diagnosed with COVID-19. We have their families. We have healthcare workers who work in facilities, all being stigmatized. And when it happens like that, we end up labeling them, stereotyping them, discriminating against them, treating them separately, and then they lose their status in the society. Why is this happening? It is happening because COVID-19 is a new disease with a lot of unknowns. When it started in Ghana, it was seen as a burger disease, have-been disease, because it was those who had a history of travel who were having it. But now it is in the wider community, and so we need to look at it. The Honorable Minister highlighted some of the impact, and that is what we are seeing in the facilities. I work at the University of Ghana Medical Center, and so we occasionally have patients who come and are not forthright with travel history or history of contact because of stigma. I'll give you another example. A colleague shared with me that she had been managing a woman with hypertension with a group of drugs that can cause cough. Cough is a side effect of what we call the ACE inhibitors or ARBs. So in managing her, the doctor was trying to find out whether she's experiencing any cough. So she asked her, are you coughing and do you have any history of cough? The woman said, no cough at all. So later on the doctor said, okay, when you do cough, let me know, because the drug that I've given you can cause a dry cough. Then he's like, oh, doctor, the reason why she didn't say so is fear of stigma. She thinks that once I have a cough, I'll be diagnosed with COVID-19, and once you have COVID-19, you'll be stigmatized. So how can we deal effectively with stigma? We know things that work for us, so let's look at a few. We need to build trust in our health system. Stigma often starts from within. All my life I've worked in mental health, and nowhere is stigma emphasized or stigma as real as in mental health, where even when you are a practitioner, I remember those days when, yes, 96, working at a psychiatric hospital. Even my husband, who was working in Kolibu, was stigmatized because his wife worked in the psychiatric hospital. But we also know things that we can do that can fight stigma. So having reliable information is one. We know that regularly the Ministry of Information, together with the Ghana Health Service, the Director General is here, update us with what is happening. So you have to have the know-how, and then we show empathy to people who are being affected. We have a saying that says that if you see your neighbor's beard on fire, you collect water, you fetch water and put it against yours. Not because yours will catch fire too, but in case yours catches fire, you have water to douse the fire. We have community spread. We never know who is going to get it. So let's be empathetic to those who have it, so that when you have it, the same way you treat others, you will get the support. But if you stigmatize others, next time it might be you. We also need to understand the disease, and that's why I'm so happy about the education that is being done in various languages. And then we should adopt practical measures that work. But
against COVID-19. My colleagues, Edwin and Gloria, have the liberty to chip in one or two, but I'm said it's best repeating that it should not be business as usual. The media should capture the national mood and play a frontal role in the fight against COVID-19. So, Gloria, or Eben, if there's any. Okay. Okay, I thank you. Okay.
Okay, so and that was President of the Ghana Journalists Association, Dr. Roland Afil-Moni, urging the media to support the fight against COVID-19 by pitching in educating the public. He was one of those who addressed the minister's press briefing, which ended just a few minutes ago at the Ministry of Information. It was moderated, of course, by the Minister, Kojo Oponkruma, who began with an overview on government efforts in the COVID-19 fight. Major highlights there: the Director General of the Ghana Health Service, Dr. Patrick Abuaji, came to sort of clarify that information that was put out a bit late last night about the increment in the number of cases when it comes to COVID-19 in the country. He stated that the cases are 566 and not 1,064, as some persons put out in social media last night. Let's move on now. And the Director General of the Ghana Education Service, Professor Kwesi Opoku-Amankwah, says the GES has no reason to resist the use of some senior high schools as COVID-19 isolation centers once all safety precautions have been satisfied. At the launch of a national disinfection and fumigation exercise of all private and public senior high schools in the country, he stated he's uncertain about when schools in the country will reopen as the coronavirus pandemic rages on.
All of this work is getting ready to swing into action for the nationwide disinfection and fumigation exercise of various senior high schools in the country. Well, Professor Opoku-Amankwah, who is the Director General of the Ghana Education Service, says this has become necessary to rid of bed bugs and also insulate the schools against the threat of COVID-19.
But this specific one, we are taking the opportunity to first do fumigation of the schools. The COVID-19 disinfection, as I indicated and the Minister equally indicated, is the second phase of what we will be doing. Now, what happens is that the students are not in school yet. The fumigation, when you do, we are told that it takes a while before you can go into the schools. But with the one that they do for disinfection, within a day, you know, when the markets were done, they were done, the next day people were moving in. So our view is that we will rather prefer to do that much closer to reopening. So if everything goes down, then we say that next month we are reopening. you know that at least we have some 4 weeks to go. So what we'll then plan is that we'll work with them, and then within that 4 weeks, we go and do that. As far as when to reopen the schools, it's for us. It's not in our hands now, and we just buy our time and then hope that these things will go within the shortest possible time. We need to also know that the COVID is not a national issue. It's a global issue. So even when we are ready, others might not be ready, and it may not be prudent for us to go ahead. But we are just hoping that within the shortest possible time, we'll get over this.
He says GS has given its blessings for its facilities to be used as isolation centers, but he maintains that the proper channel needs to be followed.
But this is a national issue. It is a national issue. The facility is a national facility. What we have said is that if it is going to be used, all the necessary precautions have to be taken. So, I mean, we have not asked that period, what they call it, where teachers live is where these things could be done. There are classrooms out there which are not closer to teachers. There are dormitories which are not closer to teachers. Within the same compound, as we've been told, the virus travels within a very short period. And then again, when we are going to quarantine them, I'm not sure whilst on holidays now, teachers go around looking at the classrooms. They don't. You know, they are not supposed to do that. So I'm not sure the people who want to use there because they want a challenge for people. Nobody will do that. All the precautions will be taken, and they will be assured. There's a whole team that works on it, psychologists, everything, and then they will be assured that the right things are done. Once it is done, I think that should be okay.
Education Minister Macho Boku Prempeh has also been speaking.
We do know that bed bugs is not the only problem in our schools. We have bed bugs eating up students while they sleep and study. We have rodents and reptiles threatening students as they move about on campus. And we have COVID-19 lurking and waiting to pounce if we lose our guard. Interestingly, these three situations, or these three pests, or dangers, whether to do with reptiles, which I'm scared of, COVID-19, which frightens me, we need different chemicals to deal with them. It is not one chemical for all of the three I've said. But before the students go to school, we should understand that some of our schools are being used as hold-up bays for some people who are recovering or with coronavirus, or some people as temporary shelter. And before students get back into school, we have to ensure that we spray all those institutions against possible coronavirus. That would come. What we are here today is to launch our bed bug infestations fumigation program. This, like we've been told, will cover both public and private institutions in the second cycle space, and it will cover both day and boarding institutions in the second cycle space.
Still live on Joy News today with me, Daniel Daze. Coming up, Communication Ministry assures MTN and Vodafone working to help deal with pressure on data arising from the imposed restrictions. Details after the break. Stay with us. Communications Minister Ursula Osei-Kuffour says the National Communications Authority has made available additional spectrum to telecommunication giants MTN and Vodafone to help them deal with pressure on data arising from the imposed restrictions. This, she explains, came at no cost to the telcos. Telcos, she adds, have also been granted free access to educational platforms, Ministry of Information and Ghana Health Service platforms as well. She explains this means accessing such platforms will come at no data cost to users.
And and all websites for the Ghana Health Service and Ministry of Information. So if you go to the Ghana Health Service website, you're not using any data. If you seek information from the Ministry of Information's website, you're not using any of your data. It has been zero rated and it is for free. Services to the general public has been affected by this. I say the traffic jams have moved from the streets online. And so the President has directed that the ministry, the NCA, should give more bandwidth, more spectrum to the telcos during this period for free, and that has been done. Fortunately, we have only a limited amount of spectrum currently available, and that has been given to the two telcos that are bearing the brunt of it, Vodafone and MTN. Airtel Tigo has sufficient spectrum, and so Vodafone and MTN have been giving the additional spectrum for 3 months, because we do need to reserve some for emergencies like this, and so we can't give it to them permanently. So they've been giving it to use for the next 3 months for free, and hopefully that will help reduce the pressure on their networks. We can also help further by changing our online behavior a little bit. If you don't have to make a video call, don't make a video call, or call on WhatsApp or any of these platforms. Make your normal phone call. It will go through, but it will conserve the data that you use. Let's limit the downloads of movies and music and stuff like that. We already have some saved on our phones. TVs are also working. Let's see how we can utilize the available mediums that we have to reduce the pressure on the scarce resource, the data that we have. And now, maybe it's the time for you to read that book that you've put aside for such a long time. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with using data, but let's see how we can also modify our use of data to see that we can conserve it. The ministry is also working with Star Times, using the 300 digital satellite villages, digital villages project to screen free educational content for all our students in the villages. As you may recall, in 2008, this project donated 6,000 decoders, 600 projector TVs, and 300 TV sets, which are all solar powered, to 300 villages around the country to facilitate digital communications. That infrastructure is being utilized with the Ghana Education Service to showcase the Ghana Learning TV, so that our children that are at home can also use this project. We're also working to establish virtual offices for some 300,000 public sector workers, utilizing our Smart Workplace project. There are currently about 20,000 workers already using it, which makes it possible for them to work virtually, securely, from home. And government business has to work. We don't know how long this is going to last. We hope it won't take very long. But if it does, we also have to explore other ways of using technology to facilitate our government-to-government citizen engagement. And this is a secure platform that the ministry is working with the Ministry of Finance to make available to all MDAs. I'll use this medium to urge the chief directors and heads of agencies to answer the simple questionnaires that we've already sent to them.
Now, Deputy Director of the Ghana Health Service is in charge of public health in the region, Dr. Senanu Jokoto, told Joy News relatives and individuals identified to have been in contact with infected persons would be under mandatory quarantine supervised by health officials. He was speaking to Joy News' Volta region correspondent, Fred Kwame Asari in Ho.
So we have two main categories of cases that we are looking at. Those who were under mandatory quarantine in the Volta region. Some people tried to breach our borders when it was closed. They were apprehended and the samples were sent into mandatory quarantine. After 14 days, we took their samples. So far, we have taken 56 of those samples, and 6 of them have proved positive. The other 50 were negative. We have 50 more in isolation, and we've taken their samples. Those ones are pending. Now, from the routine surveillance, that's the people we see in our hospitals who present like it could be COVID-19. We have a case criteria, which we call the case definition. If they fit in, then we take their samples and send it to Noguchi. So far, we have taken 49 of those samples, and 3 have come out positive. So I've earlier mentioned 6 positive, that is in Ketu South, or Aplau to be more specific. And the 3 other cases, one is a middle-aged man who resides in Ho, went to Accra about 12 days ago, came back, and then about 10 or 12 days after he came back, he started exhibiting signs and symptoms that were similar to that of COVID-19. So he was suspected, kept in isolation. His samples were taken to Noguchi and he came out positive. And we have 2 in Hohoi at present. The Hohoi one is a pregnant woman who came from Accra, Greater Accra region, to come and deliver here in the Volta region, specifically Hohoi. So after delivery, it was noticed that she was coughing, having fever, and running nose. When the samples were taken, was also positive. And another was a young man who had also come from Accra. And when he started having symptoms, he contacted the health facility. Samples were taken and sent to Accra, and that also came out positive. So far, they are all doing very well, and they are all in isolation.
Meanwhile, major markets have been shut down. This includes the Peve market by the South Dai District Assembly. However, residents flouted this directive and trooped to the market center. The market was, however, buzzing with trade activities when Joy News visited on Tuesday morning. The district chief executive, Marlet, explains it has been a hurdle convincing traders to comply with the directive.
Late. Now, tomorrow will be the Peki Market Day, and they will not be able, they should not be able to give us that excuse because the information I read them already. And on Thursday will be the Gemini Market Day. They will also don't have to give us that excuse because the information is not late anymore. It's timely. Yeah. So we will not accept any such excuses. The whole idea is not to stop people from buying food. In fact, if we can observe the social distancing, we should be able to let the markets run. But they are not observing it. And for us in the assembly, the markets have become too dirty for our liking. And this is an opportunity we think we should clean the markets. So we take an opportunity of this to do some serious cleaning whilst they remains closed or pressure on the market goes down. Yes, the excuse here.
Let's get some more on this from Fred Kwame Asare, who was speaking to the DCE there. Fred, so you have visited this market. Why are the traders not complying?
Yeah, so the district said boundary with the eastern region, and some measures have been put in place following the eastern region recording cases of coronavirus to curb the spread into the Volta region. I should say these measures were even put in place before the Volta region recorded cases. So it included the setting up of screening centers at 3 entry points, and then the closure or suspension of market days in the Peve, Peki, and then the mini market. But then here at the Peve market, Tuesdays are traditional market days in Peve. I was told that traders came here as early as 6 a.m. Some I was told came last night about 6 p.m. and then started selling their wares. That is yam. Most of them brought in yam last night. And then this morning, others from surrounding communities arrived with their wares as early as 5 a.m. and then disregarded the directive and then started going about their trading activities. About 7 a.m. this morning, the police officers engage them and then try to sack them or take them out of the market. But they explained that the directive came late, so they didn't hear the directive, and that they should be given some time to sell whatever they brought to the market, and then after that, they would leave. Some people who also came here to buy explained that if they are not allowed to buy foodstuff, their families would go hungry. So the police came to a consensus that they should be allowed to sell for 2 hours. So after these 2 hours, I saw police officers going around the market center telling the traders that they should pack their wares and then leave the market. At the moment, I should say about 80 to 85% of the traders had left the market and have packed their things and had left the market. So there is less commercial activity here at the further market. And then also the DC who I spoke to earlier mentioned that they are going to put in measures to ensure that this doesn't occur tomorrow, which is Peki Market Day, and then Thursday, which is Germany Market Day. So they are going to ensure that they wouldn't allow traders to troop to the market center to flout the directive of suspension of market days in the South Dine district.
Did they say how they are going to ensure these people do not flout the directives?
Yes, he mentioned that perhaps they would have to set up barriers at the entry points to this, the towns that have the market. Perhaps in the Peki market, they would ensure that no trader is allowed into Peki to go and sell in the market. And then also in Germany, they would do same to ensure that they don't flout the directive of suspension of market days. Now, in your interaction with the traders, is it a case of people going to sell because they feel they can't survive without selling, or they just don't see the urgency of the COVID-19 scare? Well, let me say that some of them have identified the urgency of the virus. I saw some of them in masks and what have you. They have very little buckets around that they frequently wash their hands. But then some of them also told me that if they are not allowed to sell their food items, some of them said they had fish in there, that if they are not allowed to sell the fish would get spoiled or perish. So they should be allowed to sell their wares. And then some also mentioned that they depend on daily income. So if they are not allowed to sell in the market today, they don't know what they are going to feed their families with. So they pleaded with the police and then give them just 2 hours time to sell their wares at least and then get something to feed their families with. Is the DC aware of this challenge that some people go to the market for daily income, and does he have any plans to bridge the gap for these persons? Exactly, he's aware. So he mentioned that they are trying to engage traditional authorities to find out how they can go about this directive to ensure that instead of people traveling from their respective communities to come and trade in market centers like that of Peki, Seve, and Germany, they should rather set up market centers in their individual communities where they can just go there, sell their wares, and then residents come there and buy instead of conversion at the particular center to observe a market day. They are trying to discourage that so that people who rely on daily income can at least make something in their respective communities, right, or earn something in their respective communities. Fred Kwame, thank you very much for that update from the Volta region. Now, away from COVID-19, a Ghanaian ex-banker has been charged with bribery of government officials in Ghana and by the U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of New York. One Asante Beko arranged for bribes for a Turkish energy company to funnel money to a Ghana-based intermediary, which then paid the local officials. According to the documents from the U.S. court, a total of $4.5 million was transferred, out of which $2.5 million was paid. Joy News' Winston Amwa joins me in studio with more details. So, Winston, what do the documents tell us about how the bribe was paid?
So, Daniel, the documents are very clear. It tells you that, say on 11th May 2015, the, intermediary company requested the energy company to pay some $1.5 million for them to go to, bribe some Ghanaian officials. And according to the document, the bank transferred. So they were sent an invoice, and then they transferred $1.5 million to this Ghanaian entity. It also talks about the fact that on 17th July, after the approval of the ratification of the agreement by Parliament, the intermediary company requested an additional $1.5 million. However, $250,000 was paid. And these monies, according to the court document, were also used to actually facilitate the bribery scheme.
So apart from how this money was paid, did they tell us about which companies are involved?
So Daniel, the court document says a Turkish energy company, which is then named as the energy company. Now, it doesn't mention names, but if you look at the document, it says on 17th July 2015, Ghana's parliament ratified the power purchase agreement. So it's important you go to the Hansard, that's the official documents of parliament. If you go to 17th July 2015, Power Minister moved a motion for the adoption of a resolution. And what he moved for was a power purchase agreement between the government of Ghana, in fact an emergency power purchase agreement, between the government of Ghana and AXA Energy of Turkey. So this is between government of Ghana, AXA Energy of Turkey.
Which is a Turkish energy company.
It's a Turkish energy company. If you look at the document in its totality, that was the only power purchase agreement approved or ratified on the day.
What about Asante Beko, this person?
Well, so if you look at the document, the court documents carefully, Daniel, so Asante Beko, we're told, was more of the intermediary, or if I could put it that way, the facilitator. And we're told that as a U.S. citizen and a Ghanaian citizen, so he has dual citizenship, and a former executive director of a United Kingdom-based financial services company. That is wholly owned subsidiary of a publicly traded bank holding company based in the U.S. So that's how come people have talked about Goldman Sachs. But I also do know that there's been a lot of questions here about who is currently the TOR MD. It's same name, but if you look at the TOR website, it talks about something, and over here we're not making any assumptions here. We're just looking at the names that you can see there. So it talks about, when on the 20th of January, when TOR actually appointed Asante K. Beko as MD. It says the board of directors of the Tema Oil Refinery has appointed a 46-year-old Asante K. Beko as a new managing director and chair of the executive management team of the refinery. It says Mr. Asante Beko succeeds Isaac Osei, who served between 2017 to 2019. And
does it say there that you worked for Goldman Sachs?
So it says here, the penultimate paragraph says, Mr. Beko's professional life has seen him occupy various executive positions and performs vital structuring and restructuring roles in globally recognized organizations such as Goldman Sachs, Credit Suisse, Ernst & Young. And just one thing finally, Diana. So you look at the TOR document that says 46-year-old Asante Beko, and the defendant here on page 6 of the court document says the defendant is a 46-year-old dual United States and Ghanaian citizen.
Okay, interesting similarities there. Thank you very much, Mr. Namwa, for bringing us those details. Now, government will soon draw from the emergency funds released by the International Monetary Fund to Ghana this week. That's according to Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta speaking in an interview with Joy Business. The sectors said the fund had come at the appropriate time and will help mitigate the impact of the deadly coronavirus on the Ghanaian economy.
I think we will possibly, by the weekend, we should have the Bank of Ghana receiving these funds. And I think one of the more crucial elements of this is that, when you get these shocks in your economy, there's usually a liquidity crisis, and if you don't manage that quickly, you then get into solvency crisis, which then, really puts you into a tailspin. In President Kufuor pushing us to be so timely and proactive to contain the corona spread, and the fund also responding, in such an amazing way, I think we are going to be able to contain the impact a lot better than most countries. Ghana has been truly blessed. This year we were able to get to the markets early in February, and then the markets have closed. So we were able to get through about $3 billion before that, which gave us a buffer. And then in this instance, too, the rapid credit facility we've also been able to get through that, to get this 1 billion cushion. So we are looking very hard to normalize the situation.
Now, educationist Professor Stephen Adair is urging governments to deploy more technology to bridge the gap created in the educational system due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Speaking on the Super Morning Show, the former rector of GIMPA said government must also provide a stimulus package to private schools who may be bearing the economic brunt of this pandemic.
Well, first of all, let us give credit where credit is due. The government and the Ministry of Education is already streaming some courses on television. So they have started. What I'm saying is that that is not reaching everybody. So we have to reduce it to radio also. So basically what I'm asking for is not a new thing. They have started, they are working on it, but the media should be extended so that where the children go, it must be there. We must also put some on such a way that they can use those who have the specialized iPhone can also have access to them. In other words, we should use multimedia rather than the ones which we in the urban areas are used to. So
we apologize for the poor quality of sound there. Now, Professor Adair has meanwhile warned against a lockdown in farming areas to avert food shortage or crisis post the COVID-19 pandemic.
We must be very careful not locking down the whole country because this April and May are critical planting seasons in the rural areas. And our people must plant or else next year, we all die, not of COVID, but of hunger. So please, our farmers, go ahead, plant, and do Ghana a favor by doing 50% more farms so that we will be able to become, at least food-wise, self-sufficient.
What about the danger to us in terms of the spread?